This evening, longtime journalist Bill O'Reilly joins us to talk about this unprecedented presidential election and how he thinks it compares to past election cycles. Plus, candidates for Arizona's 4th congressional district join us in studio. Democratic incumbent Greg Stanton talks about the biggest issues he's looking to fix if re-elected, and Republican Kelly Cooper sits down to talk about why the district is in need of a change. This is Before You Vote. Welcome, I'm Mike Broomhead. We are less than 3 weeks away from the November election, and in that time, we will continue to cover as many of the issues and candidates and propositions on the ballot as we can. CD4 covers Tempe, Awhatukee, and large parts of Mesa and Chandler. The candidates running for election, Kelly Cooper and Greg Stanton, are in a rematch from the 2022 midterms. Before we sit down with those guests, I want to start off with the latest news both locally and now internationally. First of all, let's start with what happened in Gaza. IDF soldiers came in contact with the leader of Hamas, the mastermind behind the October 7th attack, and he was killed in that attack. It took 24 hours to confirm, but he was killed in that attack. So now the hope is this will lead to a ceasefire. Benjamin Netanyahu, the leader of Israel, spoke to the world and said that if the hostage takers release the remaining hostages, they can go and live. So the hope is a prisoner exchange, a hostage exchange, so that it can lead to peace in that region. This may be the first open door, as now the leaders of both Hezbollah in the north and Hamas in Gaza have been killed. New leadership may lead to a ceasefire. And locally, the big story was the unsealing of court documents and details of the Gallego divorce. This is a Senate candidate, Congressman Gallego, from the mayor of Phoenix. They were divorced, and they kept it sealed and wanted it sealed because of their child. Well, a court ordered that it be unsealed, that they didn't have a reasonable reason to have it sealed. So it was unsealed, really with not much in there. The Gallegos are demanding an apology from Kari Lake and from the other people that were involved in all of this. We'll see what happens. Coming up, Republican candidate Kelly Cooper sits down to talk about his campaign for CD4. We'll be back in exactly 60 seconds. Welcome back to Before You Vote. Continuing our conversations with candidates, this time the Republican candidate in CD4, Kelly Cooper. Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So your opponent is an incumbent,
yes,
in Greg Stanton. So it's really hard a lot of times to defeat an incumbent. What is it about your district, and what is it that you think is going to get to the voters and they need to know about this district?
Well, so you're right. It is very difficult to challenge an incumbent. And I think that this district being, it's a suburban district. I think it's run by families, and families really want to know that whoever's representing them understands the issues that are facing not only them, but their friends and their neighbors. And we see every day different economic cues. We see different security cues that are telling us that the direction we're headed isn't right. And I believe that the people of this district are looking for somebody different, someone that represents their values and can bring forward some positive change, both on a financial front, but as well on a security front.
So let's talk about that financial front, because you're a business owner, but not just a business owner. You're in the restaurant business. You've had a rough road here with food prices and food costs. How does that help you? Is that a help to you in this race?
It gives me something to draw on. So the restaurant business is probably one of the most fun, but also the most challenging businesses there is to be in, because the margins are very small and issues like inflation affect us pretty deeply. Oftentimes, I'm in the middle of a menu revamp at the sports bar right now. And 4 years ago, a case of chicken wings cost $80. Today, as I'm trying to reprice our menus for the fall and football season, that same case of chicken wings now costs $140. A pound of ground beef was just over $2 4 years ago. Today, it's $3.80. Now, that's not exclusive to the restaurant industry. The people in this district see it at the grocery store as well. But it gives me a unique perspective because I'm dealing with it on a very regular daily basis. I don't have the luxury of just saying, well, I'm just going to charge you more. the people in this district are struggling. Their families are paying upwards of $400 for their electric bill, $100 for their gas, their groceries are $400. I can't just say, hey, I'm just going to give you a 20% increase on these wings because, well, that's costing me more. So the challenge and the struggle is, as a business owner, trying to strike that right balance of taking care of the community, but also staying viable as a business.
One of the frustrations that I hear, I talk to people all the time with the shows, is the frustration is inactivity, inaction, that Congress seems to be struggling, that they can't work across the aisle, they can't get anything done, or they refuse to get something done. Right. How do you go into that atmosphere with that many people and it's one vote and make a difference or build a coalition? What do you do to get something done?
Yeah, well, I think the first start is to go in and understand the landscape. What does it look like? And from an outsider's perspective, it appears to be similar to high school with a lot of different cliques, and this group doesn't want to work with that group. You know, the truth is that the people of Arizona and America are looking for somebody that can bring people together. I think my role, my job is going to be to go in and identify the people that are willing to work not only across the aisle, but within the party so that we can find solutions for these problems. Because as I said, we are, as a community, friends, neighbors, ourselves personally, are struggling with the way the economy's gone, and we need people that will reach across the aisle, find common sense solutions, and move forward the agenda of the American people.
Obviously, we're a border state, and
Yep.
It's a big issue, always has been, but it's become a national issue now. Recently, the statistics that at least 32,000 unaccompanied minors haven't showed up for immigration hearings, and we don't know where these kids are.
Right.
How can, or what needs to be done to get legislation through the Congress that does something about border security and the immigration issue?
Yeah, well, I think that the R's and the D's have to put the R's and the D's aside and really talk about the American people and what's in the best interest of not only the American people, but the migrants that are attempting to come to our country. We should have migration. It should be legal. It should be based on needs and merit and asylum. These are key tenets and foundations of the way this nation was built, and we can't ignore that. But it needs to be done legally, and it needs to be done in a manner that is transparent so that the security of both the Americans and the people that are trying to come across the border are taken care of. You can't have 20, 30, 80,000 kids go missing and not feel it in your heart. I have a 9 and a 10-year-old at home. I would never dream of sending my kids anywhere, but sending them anywhere alone and then having them go missing, it's crushing on the soul. We have to look at the best way to solve these problems, and it starts at home, taking care of the people here first, building a system that makes sure that we're bringing through people through the ports of entry with background and security, and making sure that it's done in a manner that can be accountable.
Well, listen, I appreciate the time. I know it's not an easy process, but I wish you the best, and thanks for coming down.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, it's Kelly Cooper. We'll be back. Now stay with us. We hear from Democratic incumbent and CD4 Greg Stanton. See how he plans to help voters in Chandler, Tempe, and Mesa. Plus, Bill O'Reilly from the O'Reilly Factor joins us in a special interview to talk about this year's presidential election. This is Before You Vote. Welcome back to Before You Vote. Our conversations with candidates, and one name you'll recognize, Congressman Greg Stanton. Thanks for doing this.
It's great to be here.
Let's start off, big broad brush question. What are the biggest issues for people in your district that you're dealing with in D.C. for your district in Arizona?
I mean, the biggest issues, as they are across the country, economy. Thank goodness in AZ04, which includes Mesa, Chandler, Tempe, Awhatukee. I mean, economically, it's doing very strongly. The advanced manufacturing that we invested in through the CHIPS Act, semiconductor, it is happening more in that area than anywhere else in the country. Arizona's doing better than anywhere else. We got to keep that positive momentum going. Water is always a major issue because that is the potential limiting factor for our economic growth and success, so that will always be an issue. And then, of course, keeping prices down, healthcare prices. What are we going to do on grocery store prices, et cetera, that you hear so much about? So kind of the kitchen table issues, always very important as well.
So how do you work on the water issue? I mean, what does a member of the Congress do on the issue of water? What are you doing in D.C. that's helping here?
Okay, the biggest thing is we provide resources so that we can conserve more water in Arizona. Intel is growing like gangbusters in Chandler. We need to make sure that they recycle every drop of that water. So as they're growing and creating those high-wage jobs, they're not drawing down more of the Colorado River, which is a diminishing resource. We're in a 20-year drought. My job is to partner with Mayor Awhatukee and the city council there. They have more water reclamation facilities so they can recycle that water and put it right back into that plant so they can continue to grow without exacerbating the ongoing drought conditions. In addition, 2 major bills that were passed, bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, total it up, there were $8 billion in those bills for Western water issues to drought conditions. The issue is most of that money so far has gone to pay large water user entities not to use their water allotment. That's a short-term solution. It buys us time. But long-term, we need to do much more on water conservation. That's the only way we're going to be able to defeat this drought and still grow in terms of people and economically in the state of Arizona.
But the message also, from my perspective, is to let the country know that if you're coming to Arizona, we're working on those things and we are going to have the water we need to grow. Do you agree with that statement?
Absolutely. One of the other things I'm working on with the city of Phoenix, who's partnering with the other Valley cities, is a massive advanced water purification facility that will take wastewater and turn it into clean water without having to draw down more from the Colorado River. It will reduce their usage of Colorado River by 50%. That is more water that can be used for economic growth and the growth of population that is coming here. Long term, we need to do more in augmentation. Things like the desalinization that Governor Ducey was talking about. Long term, we've got to do that. In the short run, we've got to do more on conservation. Here's another reason why. There are 7 other states that lay claim to that Colorado River. We are going to be having tough negotiations with them. When we do more internally, look in the mirror and say, what can we do more to conserve water? We will do better in those negotiations.
See, you're reading my mind, because the next question was going to be about the disappointment where a state like Arizona has been doing this for so many years. Senator Kyle and the work he did years ago, but places like California that you would think environmentalism and all of these things would be the biggest issue. But we've done a much better job than places like California, in my opinion. And yet California doesn't have the restrictions that Arizona is going to have.
Mike? You are correct with that analysis.
Who'd have ever thought we'd agree? Listen to this.
As much as we've grown over the last 20, 30 years, we actually use less water, in part because as we grow, we're growing into agricultural areas. And so as they become residential and you have low water usage, appliances and things like that, it tends to use less water. And that's a good thing for our state. So it is counterintuitive, but as we grow, we often use less water, but we still have these drought conditions, so we still have to be very mindful of that. Look, California the negotiation isn't actually done by Governor Newsom. It's done by the large agricultural districts there, and they use a lot of water, and we need to use innovation and efficiency to help them use less water and still be able to grow the crops that they do. Same thing in Arizona. We want to support our farmers and agriculture industry by allowing them and supporting them and using drip systems and lower water usage so we can still grow our crops, maintain that way of life, but still use ultimately less water. We can do this. We can grow Arizona, grow our economy. It's just going to take a lot of investment in water infrastructure, and that's my job in Washington, D.C.
All right, I've got 30 seconds left. I need a quick answer.
Right.
Quick answer. Are you confident there's going to be bipartisan legislation on the border issue and immigration significant enough to get something done the American people will believe in?
Yes, I do. I actually believe that rightfully the pressure is on. We have to reestablish operational control at the border. I know there's been a lot of talk about the Senate bill, the bipartisan bill. I do believe that when we get through this election, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans that win, it's going to be divided government. The only way to get things done is in a bipartisan way. And there's so much rightful push by the American people to get something done that I'm confident that Congress will deliver in this instance.
Thanks for the time. I appreciate it. Went by so quick. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. American political commentator and journalist Bill O'Reilly talks about his new book, Confronting the Presidents, and his opinion on our current political landscape. This happens next on Before You Vote. Welcome back to Before You Vote. Joining me, star of stage and screen, best-selling author Bill O'Reilly. Bill, it's good to talk to you again.
Thanks, Amy and Mike.
I want to talk about the book, Confronting the Presidents, and the motivation for the book. But let's start with leadership today. What do you make of this presidential race? I mean, in light of writing this book, what do you make of the leadership today?
Well, it reflects the society in general. We don't really have now a commitment to the people. By that I mean, way back, not everybody, because there were bad presidents throughout our history, but public service was deemed to be only one avenue. That is helping as many people as you can help by your elected position, whether it's a mayor, a governor, a president, a senator, whatever it may be. Now people are in it for fame and fortune. And that's changed the equation. I'm generalizing now. There are some good public servants, but I think everybody understands that the pursuit of power has now overridden doing the right thing for the folks, and that's hurt the country.
Are we more segmented than we were when you did your research for this book? It seems like we speak to groups. We're looking at the black voter and the white voter and the women voter and the men voter and the young and the old. Are we more segmented now in the way we talk to voters?
It's hard to say. There have always been divisions. I mean, obviously the Civil War, the run-up to that, couldn't have had more divisive climate in any country. But today we have a lot of selfishness, which is different than we had when people were fighting World War II or trying to establish themselves west of the Mississippi. Kind of had a big communal then. You got to band together to survive. Now it's, what can you do for me? I want mine, you know. I'm in this group and my group wants this and we don't really care about the welfare of the country. And so we've seen that concentration into what's best for me and my crew. And that has been, of course, spread around big time by social media, which every crew has its own little website. They can go in there and complain and, you know, gin up stuff to help themselves. And so that's how that evolved.
When you were researching the book, what surprised you? What's in the research?
Every page you're going to read something. Now, I am a former history teacher and a historical expert. I'm a journalist / historian. That's how I make my living. But George Washington and his mother didn't like each other. I didn't know that until we started to research it. And I went, whoa, LBJ, Lyndon Johnson, one of the most corrupt presidents in our history, and most of his corruption was covered up. And when we found out how bad it was and put it in a book, I didn't know any of that. So I can tell you that on every page of Confronting the Presidents, you're going to go, whoa. And there's good stuff that you didn't know, too. It's not all negative.
Yeah, and kind of pulling back that veil a little bit and seeing the humanity in the people was very interesting to me.
Well, I tried to make all 45 men human beings because they were.
Right.
And if you are a human being, as opposed to a vampire, you have good and bad. You do good things and bad things. We're all sinners. And in America, we have a tendency to mythologize or demonize. I mean, if you go into the progressive precincts and say something good about Trump, they won't accept it. Trump can't possibly do anything good. And the same is true. The converse is true. If you go into very conservative precincts, say, you know, Kamala Harris not that bad, they'll boo you right out of the room. So I wanted to make all the presidents, all 45, human beings. And we told you about their relationships with their parent, sometimes the parents, George Washington, wives and husband, and on and on and on and on. Children, Teddy Roosevelt and his oldest daughter, and it was hysterical. I mean, she drove him nuts. And that way, the reader can identify, because all families have problems.
Yeah, and I love that look at it. I'm not all the way through the book yet, but I can't wait to get through it. Thank you. I appreciate you coming on with me again. I know you're a very busy guy. I hope people pick up the book. I've read a bunch of your books, and I am so thrilled with this one. I love it. I actually love this book.
Nice of you to say, Mike, and I want to tell everybody in Arizona, you know, stay strong.
Yeah, we're doing our best. Thanks again, Bill.
Okay, Mike.
All right, we'll be back. Thanks to all of our guests for joining us on the show this week, and thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next Sunday on Before You Vote.